talk a little bit about this morning about thank God that our yesterday happened. I have an odd way of looking at things sometimes. Here in a little bit, if you want, I'm going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 17, if you want to kind of get turned there. It's a story I guarantee we just about all know, but once again, like I said, I look at it a little bit different. Something stuck out to me this time as I read it. But I want to ask you, each and every one of us who have come to Christ, who have made that profession of faith, has come up here and given our lives to Him. He's put a calling on our lives. He's put a gift. He's given us a gift that we can use. We might not know what it is yet, but I wonder if anybody's... I had a question posed to me, and I wonder if anybody else has looked at it like that. Is that calling that is given to me, is it for me? I would challenge to say no. My calling of doing what I'm doing here, it's not for me. It's for every one of you out there, the ones that's listening on the camera. Whether your gift is a prayer warrior, whatever it may be, whatever that gift is, it's not meant just for you. It's meant to help those around you. It's meant to give comfort to others. It's meant to speak Christ into their lives. It's meant for everyone, not just the person it's given to. It's just like Alex's talent for music. It's not just so he can be happy that he's up here singing and playing guitar. It's meant for us to be able to sit back there and to enjoy worship led by him using those gifts. Your gift that God has given you is a weapon, and to use a weapon, you have to get good at it. The first time any of us ever picked up a gun, or whether it be a BB gun, a shotgun, whatever it was your first time, I guarantee you didn't hit anything with it. I know I didn't. My dad got onto me a lot. I shot several windows out before I could aim pretty good. Some of them might have been on purpose too, though. But with any gift, with any weapon that you have to have some practice with it. It's not going to just come straight out of the... you're not just going to pick it up and use it right the first time. Some people have testimonies of that. Some people, once they give their life over to Christ, that sin that they dealt with, that battle they fought before, Jeff has spoke about it. His is one in a million to me. Once he gave his life to Christ, his desires for the worldly things were gone immediately. Not all of us can be so lucky. Some of us have to struggle and pray and work and try to figure out how in the world we can change that around. But the more you practice with it, the more you use it, the better you are with it. You go from not being able to hit anything with a BB gun to being able to make a 1,000-yard shot with a rifle. But this little story right here in 1 Samuel chapter 17, I'm going to be in verse 31 through 40. It's kind of lengthy, and bear with me a little bit. I'm not the best reader. But we all have at least heard of the story of David and Goliath if we haven't read it. And as I read here, just kind of focus on the weapon side of it. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said unto Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go forth and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he be a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and I smote him, and I delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him, and I slew him. And thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and his uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, Moreover, the Lord has delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, and he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put on a helmet of brass upon his head, and armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded him with his sword, girded with his sword, upon his armor, and he is essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off of him, and he took his staff, and he took in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones from the brook, and put them in his shepherd's bag, which he had even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. I had to do a little digging to figure out what in the world he meant by I have not proved them. That armor, that sword, that was so uncomfortable for David to put on. He was this little kid. He was probably 12, 13 years old, and that armor belonged to a man. It was heavy. It was uncomfortable. It was unable to be wielded by him. It was something that he couldn't use, and he had never used it. He had proved being tested. He had never tested it. He never practiced with it. If he'd had that armor on from his youth, yeah, he'd probably be okay to do it. He'd probably be able to swing that sword and use it the way it was meant to be used. But for him, that armor, it hindered him more than anything. In his family, he was the youngest son. He was the most inferior in their minds. He was put to given the most minuscule task of shepherding the sheep. And through shepherding the sheep, he was able to get this life experience, if you will, to be able to take on a lion, to be able to take on a bear with nothing more than his bare hands and a sling. And that's something he was able to use towards this giant, this Goliath that he had to face. But he was able to show that his God provided a way for him from the beginning. He was trained before this, before he ever even thought about doing this. It took probably a lot of gumption to say, no, I'm not going to use your armor. I'm not going to use your sword. When those things probably, this probably may be a little bit safer. I might be able to live a little longer if I use these, but he knew he didn't need them because he had what God had given him and he knew how to use it. And I'm sure he didn't want to go through that struggle of having to fight that bear, fight that lion, just like we don't want to go through the struggles in our lives. We don't want to fight addictions that we may have, whatever they may be. We don't want to deal with losing loved ones in our lives. All these struggles that we can face in our lives now, we may not want to deal with them, but we can use them in the future. If we can figure out a way to get through them and come to God through them and let him help us get through them, he can help us be able to turn that around and use that in the future to someone else that's lost a loved one, someone else that's going through the same addiction, somebody else that's been to had to go through some prison time, whatever it may be. Some of us in here have talked about doing things like that. The prison ministry we talked about through the men's ministry, we would only be able to do that because of one of the men in our ministry have been through those circumstances. They've been through addictions. They've been through prison. It's just there's some groups around here of women that deal with losing children. And Asia and I dealt with that one. And we didn't take the services they offered, but there was plenty of services offered to us from losing a child, and that's a struggle that we had to find our own way to get through it. But now that we've gotten through it somewhat, we still struggle with it daily. We can help others kind of get through those situations a little bit better, a little bit easier, maybe show them it's not as dark as it may seem. But the devil will start with little small attacks in your life. I'm sure David's first battle that he had to fight wasn't a bear or a lion. He probably had to kind of keep some kind of parasite off the sheep or something like that. It was something small he had to start with. But through that, every time he got this figured out, now he had to figure out something a little bit bigger. He had to figure out something a little bit bigger. He had to go, each time he figured this one out, he had to, something else appeared. And it's the same way the devil works in our lives. Every time we figure out this little bitty task, every time we figure out, oh, I can save this much money over here and make this much easier. Well, now we got to go over here and we got to save hundreds or thousands of dollars more to get through this task. It's every time we get through one little thing, we're going to end up having to come through a bigger battle somewhere. And that's why we have this group of people here with us. That's why I urge everybody, the ones streaming online, I urge you to come to these services in person, because you can get so much more out of them if you're able. I'm not saying risk your safety or your health to do so, but being in this church, being with these people here, you can get so much more out of it. Iron sharpens iron, we hear often. But this is a safe space. It's so much better to be able to be with like-minded people that can help you get through things. The gifts that are given to us by God are the ones that we need to get good with. Some people can preach, some people can teach, some people can sing. I would love to be able to get up here and help Alex play an instrument, sing with him, do something. I'd love to be as smart as Luke is one day. That took so many years of college and so much money that I'm probably not going to get there the way he did it, but maybe my knowledge will be a different style. But he's got several years on me. I know I'm never going to be Luke. I'm me, and a lot of us fight those battles. I want to be like this person. I want to be like this person. I want to do what they do. But being you is what you were given. I mean, that's the weapons you were given to fight with. Use them. Don't try to come over here. If you're good with a 22, don't try to come over here and take this 308 and think you're going to do the same thing with it. You're good with the rifle. Don't come over here and take a bow, think you're going to do the same thing with it. They're completely different weapons. They work different. They're not meant for you. You're not good with them. You're not practiced with them. You've not used them yet. It's not saying sometime in your life they won't be there. But it doesn't matter so much what your gift or your weapon is. It matters how you use it. A weapon is only good if the wielder can be effective with it. I'm not up here for accolades. I'm not up here for attaboys or anything like that. I'm up here because I want to be able to try to help as many people as I can. I'm trying to use the gifts that God's given me. Don't think for one second I'm up here for praise and honor, because I want none of that. Honestly, this is one of the most uncomfortable things there is for me to do. I hate speaking in front of people, but I know what I meant to do it, so I do it and I practice with it. Not only here, it's through work even. I have to speak in front of people. I have to, if any of you can remember when I first started this, I talked about like this right here and you couldn't hear me, even with the mic. But now I'm able to speak out a little bit. I'm able to get a little bit more comfortable up here. I'm able to hopefully convey God's word as it's meant to be conveyed. And I think about these things like this, and I think back to a song that probably, I would say, my return into Christ hinged on this one song. I was driving down 75 just outside of Chattanooga on my way to Atlanta, and Matthew West's song come on the radio. I don't even know why I was listening to a Christian station. About the only thing I listened to then was heavy metal and rock and nothing Christian, that's for sure. But I grew up in a Christian household. I had a Christian foundation in my background, so I knew who God was at one time, but I ran away from him. I wanted nothing else to do with that. I wanted to be out here with my friends, having fun, drinking, smoking, whatever I wanted to do. But he's got this song, and it's called Do Something. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but in the first part of the song, he's complaining to God. He's like, all these people are out here hurting. These people are starving. Why don't you just do something, God? And just a little bit later on, he said, I did. I created you. And even now, when I think about it, I have a hard time not tearing up. I'm kind of an emotional person. Some of you have seen that already. But I broke into tears right there. I thought I was going to have to pull off onto the shoulder of the road and just cry and pray. But that moment is when I realized that I'm supposed to do something. I'm not just supposed to sit there and do what I want to do. in Matthew 28:18 through 20, I'm not going to ask you to turn there, I'll read it for you. We know it as the Great Commission. And it says, "And Jesus came and spake unto them, saying, All power is given unto me in heaven and earth. Go ye therefore, teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always and unto the end of the world." That's comfort in knowing that he said it right there, that he's going to be with us forever. But that also shows us that we're not just meant to sit in our pews and go out to dinner after church and then go home and just do our thing. We're meant to, throughout the week, talk to our coworkers, talk to our friends, talk to our family, whoever it may be that's in your life that you come across that you can witness to. That's what we're meant to do. That's one of the weapons that we're meant to use, and each and every one of us have that. We just have a different little version of it. And as I was studying for this and looking through scripture and watching videos and all that, I was kind of posed myself with a question. It's since being saved, how have you found a way to serve? It's taken me a long time to get to this point. I'd been in church for years before I ever even thought about stepping up here behind this pulpit. It took praying a lot to try to figure out what God wanted in my life. It took a lot of uncomfort to say, have your way with me, to do what you want, and let me be the willing vessel, and you just work through me. But we are saved to serve. We're not saved to sit. Serving others is not a standard, or it is a standard. It is not an option. We're put on this earth to serve as a Christian. I mean, if Christ can lower himself down to be a servant's position to wash the feet, who are we better than that? We're meant to serve some form or fashion, whatever it may be. It might be, like I said, up here preaching. It might be teaching. It might be singing. It might be just praying in your prayer closet at home and nobody ever know anything about it. We all have some form of servitude that we have in our lives. Matthew 20:28 tells us that even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered to, but to minister and to give his life ransom for many. He is our example for everything we should be doing. And if he come to this world just to minister, that's what we should be doing. Whatever your ministry style looks like may be a lot different. You could be like Connie, helping with when she was here doing the food pantry and the clothes closet and those kind of things. You could be helping the troubled youth in the community. There's so many different options, so many different ways to minister. You don't have to stand up here and preach or teach or sing. A lot of people get kind of misguided notions there that is the only way to ministry is to minister in a church setting like this. I'm willing to say 80% of ministry happens outside of the church, if not more than that, or it should happen outside of the church. Just like funeral services, if you get a chance to attend those in a ministry fashion, I've got to help Luke with one, thankfully, kind of getting to see that. Asia got to help the other day with one. And that is a way to connect with a family, to minister to them, to help them find comfort, to show them that somebody's there for them that maybe they didn't even know yet. Ministry is kind of a weird thing, and it jumps around a lot. But Matthew 23:11 and 12 kind of falls back onto the servitude thing. It says, "But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant, and whoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted." That shows us that if we can humble ourselves to a servitude mindset to be able to do what it is God is wanting us to do in our lives, that we will be exalted for it. We will reap the rewards for it. Maybe not immediate, and that's what a lot of people. I fought that battle. I would get up here and speak, whether it be a Wednesday night or a Sunday morning, and all I would do was I would feel down about it, like I didn't do near as good as what I was supposed to. I didn't get through what I was supposed to. And that's only because nobody come up here to the altar. That was immediate reward in my mind that if I preach a good sermon, somebody's going to come up here to the altar. And it took a lot of counseling and a lot of learning to realize that that's not the reward for it. I mean, what happens up here can happen back there in a seat as well. It can happen in the mind. It can happen on Facebook or YouTube, wherever this is being watched at. But St. Augustine, heard a quote from St. Augustine the other day, said, without man, God cannot, but without man, God will not. And that kind of hit pretty hard, that he's not going to act if we don't concede. There's been times, don't get me wrong, there is times that he does act before we ask or do something, and we see those a lot. But for the most part, unless a man is willing to step out and take an act, I say man, I mean person. It can be a man, it can be a woman, it doesn't matter. Each and every one of us have a ministry, a gift, something to use. But without man, God will not. And you have to be a willing vessel to be able to do what it is that he wants. And it's not just like Jeff was talking with the Church of Corinth this morning. And if you weren't here for Sunday school, I urge you to start coming. It's so good. So much good comes out of it. We were talking about the Church of Corinth and how after 5 or 6 years of being a church, they were still drinking the milk. They weren't eating the meat yet. They were still baby Christians, as some people would say. But I completely lost my train of thought. But they didn't do the work, and that's why Paul was writing to them. That's they just wanted to sit there and just be preached to. They didn't want to do anything else from that. They wanted to sit in a church service, hear what the preacher had to say, get up and go eat some food, go home and nap the rest of the Sunday away or something. And that was the extent of their Christian life. And if Paul is writing to a church about that then, do you not think he'd write to a church about it now? I've done a lot of reading through the letters of Paul, and I love to reflect on the church I go to when I do that. And we'd be getting a letter, I'll be honest with you. It's not just this church. I'd say every church in America would most likely be getting a letter. And something that I was looking at, it's not only does God love you, but he wants to use you. Just be that willing vessel. Like I said, it took me, you were here for a couple years before I ever stepped up and said that I felt like I needed to be that I was supposed to be in ministry. And I'd probably known that since I was 17. And I took a long break away from that, like I said, doing my thing. He will always find a way to take you back to what it is he wants you to do, as long as you're willing to put a little bit of work in it. But I neglected my gift for so long that I probably lost a lot of experiences, a lot of battles that I could have fought, that I could help so many more people through. And my heart's there to help people, and I just probably spent 10 years wasting time where I could have found ways to help other people, that I just did my own thing and wanted to help me and didn't care about anybody else. 1 Timothy 4:14 tells us not to neglect our gift. It says, neglect not the gift that is in thee, which was given thee by prophecy, which with the laying on of the hands of the elders. It's not going to just come to us easy sometimes. We might not know what it is, but through prayer, maybe fasting, whatever it may be, going to God, trying to figure out what it is He has in your life for you is something that each and every one of us should do. A couple Sundays ago, Luke preached a message on doing a new thing. Some of us do listen. Maybe make this your time of doing a new thing, of being uncomfortable, trying to figure out what it is that He has for you. Try to let a new thing come into you. Which with the new year coming, it's almost the end of the month, but it's still not too late to try to say this year I want to do this. But Luke's thing was to come closer to Christ, and I'm going to echo that a little bit, but try to this year figure out what the gift is that God has for you. Figure out what your weapon is and learn how to use it. Like I said, each and every one of us in here have one. Don't think for a second just because you're not a preacher or a teacher or a musician that you don't have a gift in your life, because I guarantee you do. You just might not know what it is. I think Pam's gift might be putting Luke in his spot on Wednesday nights. It's just each and every one of us have a little bit different personality, different demeanor, different histories, and that the individuality that makes us us creates a different gift within each and every one of us. Maybe as Alex and Belle get some music going on here in a second, I could urge you to think back on what you've went through in your life, maybe what uncomfort, whatever it may be that kind of put you in an awkward position, whatever addiction it was that you may have fought, whether it be alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, lust, so many different addictions that people have to fight in a daily life. Whatever battles you fought, losing loved ones, losing a child, losing a parent, this is that patriarchal person in our family that kind of started making us all go to church. Maybe you've lost that person, and that made you want to quit coming to church because of that, because now people are looking to you to be that person in the family, and it's more stress than you want to deal with. Whatever it may be, each and every one of us have a battle or a struggle that we've made it through, that I guarantee we're not the only ones. I guarantee you, Asia and I aren't the only ones in this building that have lost a baby. That maybe we can learn from them, they can learn from us. The ones in here that have dealt with addictions of drugs, I can guarantee you they're not the only ones in the world that have dealt with addiction of drugs. But they might be the first ones to step out and to help create a ministry, to help create a way to help other people that have been through those same things.